So this is the Internet Court of Truth and Lies. What it's for is if you're somebody who encounters something that you think is a lie in the media, or you think it's the truth in the media, then you can bring it to the court, which is basically bring it to 8 jurors. There's a set of 8 verdict questions that you fill out and make a case for the whatever it is you're thinking is a lie or truth. And the jurors fill out the same 8 questions to focus the dialogue. What happens is that the plaintiff almost would, and I'm going to be the plaintiff in this trial, the plaintiff almost always gets some people saying things that he didn't think about when he was thinking something was the truth or a lie. And the jurors, maybe less, but everybody seems to get something out of it. And it's just fun. The case today is Death Waves Grenades, which I found to be a really interesting post. Apparently, the Ukrainians were killing a lot of Russians who were instructed to cross rivers up to their necks or shoulders in water. And the drones, all they had to do was drop a grenade near the people, and the grenades would kill a lot of people, where normally a drone grenade will kill 1 or 2 people. It was killing like 12. It really had to do with a property of water. Most people think of water as something that will stop an explosion, and it does stop the mass of the explosion, but it doesn't stop the shock wave associated with the explosion. If you shoot a bullet into the water near somebody, the shock wave is very small, and the bullet will stop very soon and will lose its momentum very quickly because the water is very hard for the bullet to go through, but not the shock wave of the bullet. If you've got a grenade, you've got a large shock wave, and you're essentially stopping people's hearts if their chests are in the water with the grenade shock, even though the fragments from the grenade don't go very far. It turns out that what's going on was worked out by James Clerk Maxwell back in the 1830s, when he was actually a graduate student or just coming out of graduate school or something like that. He was a student. He later became the magnetism. He wrote the treatise of electricity and magnetism that is the basis for our understanding of how light works and so forth and so on. His basic idea in a book he wrote is where he was looking at something called Faraday's lines of force, where you can take iron filings on a sheet of paper and it put a magnet under it, and the iron filings would show the lines of force, the lines of magnetic force associated with the magnet. Faraday also hypothesized that there were, for static electric fields, you also had lines of force. It turns out that if you look at waves, if you think of the forces as waves in a medium, which is what they did in the 1800s, and they still do today, they just don't tell you they're doing it. So, they're waves in a medium, and you'll see the term pi, and it's because the waves are circles. This is called vortex theory in the 1800s, and it's in our physics today. It's just not talked about very much. But Maxwell pointed out that waves have 3 directions that they go in, and he just uses Descartes' insight. And so there's the direction. So if you're moving in this direction directly in front of you, fast, you'll generate a bow wave. And the bow wave, which is in the direction that the main wave travels, is what you get with sound. When people are talking to each other, it's the bow wave from the sound that you hear. Because air is very compressible as a medium, and it can carry the sound very easily. The motion created most all the energy in sound in air goes in the forward back direction wave. There are two other waves that go like this. One wave is doing this, and one wave is doing that, where this is the straight forward is the compression wave. These two are called the transverse waves. And if you sum the transverse waves and the compression waves together, you get the entire wave front that's associated with something going in a certain direction. What Maxwell recognized was that water is an incompressible medium. Now, it's not actually incompressible, but back in 1820 terms, it's a really pretty incompressible medium. What happens with water is, even though it can transmit sound, and it can transmit sound, by the way, long distances, which is interesting, it can transmit sound, most of the energy goes into the waves that are not in the direction of transmission, because the water will not compress back and forth in front of you. But to the sides, you can get the energy dissipated into transverse waves. It turns out that's how electricity works and magnetism work and light works. What light does is light will go in a direction, but most all the energy in the light is actually going into transverse. What that tells us is the underlying medium of space-time is a very rigid medium. It's like an incompressible fluid, like water, except it's not a liquid. It's rigid. It is space-time. So it is the rigid structure of space-time. And when you're moving through space-time, you're generating wave fronts. Those wave fronts go what's called a vacuum medium, which is not a vacuum anywhere in the universe. That rigid medium, light goes light speed because that's the most rigid structure in the universe. Because it's the most rigid, the energy, which is massless energy, transmit at the fastest speed possible, which is light speed. And it's why gravity also transmits at light speed, because it's the fastest that these waves can go through the space-time medium. It's the medium itself that's universal, and nothing in space-time is anything but that medium. And it's the thing that makes sure that this is to the right or left of that, because space and time are rigid. So what's interesting is that this whole thing reveals something about underlying physics of reality. If you drop a pebble in water, you will see the transverse waves that are generated by the pebble that are not going in the direction that the pebble is going in, but in the other two directions. And those directions are actually creating the circles that you see when the pebble drops in the water. Those circles are one instant of the transverse waves going that the pebble is generating when it hits the incompressible medium of the water. It turns out, if I want to really kill somebody, if you think about it, it's a pretty terrible action. So that action, the transverse wave action, rips you up, for want of a better term. These are waves, so they are compressing and decompressing like this.
Doesn't that kill vampires?
Yes, that will kill vampires. You can just hold it still and it'll kill a vampire. Yeah, I have no idea whether they knew that. That's a good point. It turns out if you're ever in water, remember that, because if there's an explosion in the water, you do not want your main body in the water. If somebody's just shooting at you with a gun, being in the water is a good idea. So this is weird, but it's true. I think most people think of water as something that stops bad things from getting to you, and they don't realize the shock waves. So this is a kind of an interesting thing that's very counterintuitive at one level. If you believe that water is a good way to protect yourself from getting hurt, then it turns out it's not necessarily, depending upon what kind of weapon or event is going on. It also is one of the reasons why falling down a waterfall will kill you, not just hitting the rocks. So the water itself is generating this kind of energy, this kind of destructive energy, because it's basically incompressible, and it will rip you up. That's a thing. I said that this is a lie that water can protect you from grenades. It's the opposite. Unless all you have in the water is maybe your arms or legs. But if you have your body in the water, that's a bad thing. One of my more creative suggestions was to get in a life preserver that keeps your body above the water and cover yourself with a sheepskin so the drones think that it's just a herd of sheep crossing the river. And if they use the grenades to try to kill the sheep don't die. The people don't die that are underneath the sheepskins. Whatever. That's my argument, is that it's a lie that water in general can protect you from grenades. They protect you from the fragments, but not the shock. And it will kill you. They're good enough to kill you. Depth charge kills a submarine. So my verdict is it the truth? It's factually not true. Is it the whole truth? I said it's not the whole truth. Need to understand how water works as an incompressible medium, and just to begin to understand when water does protect you and when it doesn't protect you, and make sure that you're paying attention to that. It's not just drowning that will kill you in water. Is it nothing but the truth? I said no. The whole truth really does need to be understood in order to understand how to protect yourself in the water from things that are people that are trying to kill you. What's the deceit? I think the deceit is that this idea that water can protect you the lie is misleading. A lot of times it protects you, in a lot of ways it protects you, but in other ways it'll kill you. Is the deceit or truth intended? I don't think that people who say water can protect you from grenades are intending to lie. They think they're right, and they just don't know what the real truth is, what the real physics are. What's the motivation behind the truth or lie? I think it's a great case of what's probably an unintentional lie due to a lack of understanding of the physics and the medical science. What's the social acceptability of the truth or the lie? The lie is that it's unacceptable because people should know ways in which water can kill them besides drowning and so forth and so on, so that they make sure they're not in a position to get killed. What label would improve the social acceptability? I just said it's factually untrue that water can protect you from grenades. It's just factually untrue, and it's people need to understand how that works. That's my case. I had a picture of lemmings here because lies that are lemmings, everybody believes one thing and they don't realize that jumping off that bridge is a bad idea. It's a useful thing. This was a medium, and Dylan Kambalek is an American living in Ukraine who was an intelligence officer. He speaks Ukrainian and Russian, and he was reporting this, which is, I think, one of the reasons I believed it, because he writes really good stuff. We'll go and get the other jurors on this. So, juror one.
Yeah, I think that's me. Yeah, I believed it all. I thought it's well expressed, but it made me think that there are lots of lies or these myths about water. I mean, when I was a kid, I was saying you're not allowed to swim for an hour after your meal, and you get stomach cramps and things like that. And lies about how to open a car door underwater when you dive off the bridge. That kind of got a lot of lies or myths about water, which is interesting. However, However, I would like to say, can I say that with regards to the accusation, this is precisely the kind of complication that kind of occurs, because when you use the word lie within the accusation, then what does your labeling of it being lie or true, red or blue? Are you just simply merely observing that the accusation is a lie, or are you giving it a truth value? So if you're giving it a truth value, then you're saying it is a lie actually means it is true.
Yeah, I know. Part of the deal here is that you try to make clear which way you mean it.
Yeah, no, that's
But it is a funny property of language that actually the way people think, what you described is actually true. But all words are 99% of the verbs out there have a dual meaning for the subject of the verb. One is an agentive meaning and the other one is a non-agentive meaning. And it's up to the perceiver to decide which meaning it is, because either meaning can be present, but they're not both present at the same time.
No, but yeah, it's just up to the plaintiff to make it clear when deciding the case. Yeah.
So, juror two, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice still. Basically, I'm going to put what I have to say in the chat box.
Okay.
But I agree with your verdict.
I can't understand you, so just put it in the chat. Yeah, I knew that your voice is lost, is gone. So, juror three.
Okay, I'm just going to read my verdict real quick because this is how I came through the case and what I understood it each time. Is it the truth? And I said, yes, it's a lie that water can protect you from grenades from what I've read. And they said, it's the whole truth. And I said, yes, as stated, it is a lie. See, I was confused about how truth, the lie. So I said, yes, when everybody else said no. So I meant the same thing. Nothing but the truth. I said, don't know, still have some explaining to do to figure that out, which you have done already. When I figured this out, this is how I was going along with it. What is the deceit? I think there's a hidden agenda here, I said. And so, is a deceit or truth intended? And I said, I don't know, very confused at this point, looking for hidden truth. And then, what is a motivation? And I said, lost me on this one. And so now, what is a social acceptability? I didn't know on that, but the final thing I came up with was don't vote for a divisive liar. I think you said that somewhere in your thing. This is a theme.
That's
I
the
believe,
end.
although,
that's really that's the moral message of that whole thing.
This is a theme, I believe, although not sure how we got here.
You got there because the Ukrainians were using it to massively kill Russians, and I'm sure the Russians are using it to massively kill the Ukrainians. What's really the problem is that people are killing people.
Yes.
And so they feed on the fact that they can rely on people not knowing the truth about things, which is terrible. And this is exactly what George Washington said, never do. Okay. But Russia does it. Go ahead. Any other?
Oh, that's all for me.
Okay. Juror four.
That's me, Bob. Yeah, I was a bit confused about your accusation, how to interpret it, but I agree with you based on what you've said and watching the Medium video. Yeah, so I agree with you. I've learned something. Don't be near water if someone's got a grenade. I don't think I'll ever be.
Well, it's really your legs and arms, and if your head's underwater, you're in trouble too. Okay, but the chances of your head being underwater now, if you're a scuba diver, your head's underwater, and you'll also be killed just because your body's underwater. If you're wearing a wetsuit that's thick enough that can absorb the transverse waves,
Wow.
you're okay. You're better off. And you see the seals, the way they dress up when they're in water. If you notice, they wear very thick neoprene around their body and their heads.
Ah, interesting.
And they can withstand these explosions near them.
Yeah, right. And I just wanted to add, yeah, you were mentioning Russia and Ukraine. The first casualty of war is always the truth.
Yeah, that's just amazing. So, Juror 5.
Yes. Okay. I'm just going to give a brief summary. I went down and copied everything. But after listening to some of the jurors, and I noticed that you used the phrase, "it is a lie that," and then stated the lie, that what popped into my mind is a technological fix. If you put a checkbox in front of the lie, the red lie, and put another checkbox in front of the blue thing, and then when people could only click one checkbox, and when they did, to the right in that section, it would say, "it is a lie that," and then a colon, and then you'd have the statement below. That might clear up some of that. Okay.
Actually, in an earlier version of the system, we actually did that. I can't remember the problem. We had some kind of a problem with that. This was when the system didn't look anything like it does now. It was coded by some Dutch programmers. And we did that. I can't remember, but we did hit some problems that caused me to drop. It was just that there were some cases where what you wanted to say was the truth or what you wanted to say was a lie didn't work to say it is a lie that.
Yeah, just now I imagined, there are people who could still put in an accusation statement that just added another layer of confusion.
Oh yeah, this is the way it works. Yeah.
All right. So I really enjoyed, I think maybe every single verdict that you posted in this case is very instructive.
Very different. This is a very different kind of a.
Yeah, but it came across to me as very clear. So for example, in the section on acceptability, I found as a moderator, you either have, I'd say the vast majority, 80–90% of the people are thinking that section addresses their opinion as to whether the majority of people in society agree with their views or not.
Yeah.
And then you have the 10 or 5% of people like me who quite often interpret it as, is the topic itself acceptable to be discussed in a general public? But you pointed out the lie was unacceptable because it would cause harm to people that should know the truth. And then the other thing that relates back to the whole truth is you made the statement that the whole truth needs to be understood. Anyway, I found it a very instructive case. That anybody I run into who's expressing a lot of interest in doing more plaintiff work, definitely going to recommend they review this case. That's for sure.
Yeah, they should look at this case because this is a good example of an interesting. It's one that has a different kind of a verdict, different kind of answers for the 8 questions.
Yeah, and when I was 4 or 5 years old and I learned about the undertoad at the beach that I should be afraid of, I used to brag about knowing a lot about water and that toads don't particularly like to spend their time in water. So therefore, there must be a joke on me that there is an undertoad in water.
That's neat.
All right.
I think that's why frogs. Anyway, no comment.
Can frogs float? I guess they keep their mouths shut.
I think they do float. Okay, Juror 6.
Hey, I'm juror number 6. This particular topic affords an excellent opportunity to demonstrate the multimedia capabilities of the platform. So I'm going to ask if I can share screen. Bob,
Sure.
I've sent you a request to share screen.
Yeah, I just said allow.
Okay, I'm gonna see if this works, and I'm not going to take a lot of.
If you found a good video here, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'm not going to take a lot of time here, but I have 2 kids and they're very familiar with a guy named Mark Rober. Mark Rober does a number of science related, engineering related videos, and he specifically covered this topic. So I don't want to play the whole 5-minute video, but I do wanted to see if I can get this video playing with audio just for a couple seconds.
Yeah, I actually know who this guy is because I've got grandkids.
Yeah, you know what's going on. So I've already put the link to the video in the chat.
Cool.
So that'll be available for people. But there are 2 videos, both of which are very short, but I wanted to show this real quick because it may be helpful. Would someone tell me if you can pick up on the audio when I click play?
It should work.
Water, but we have parts of air
I
in our
can hear it.
intestines, in our sinuses, in our ear. And then we subjected them to identical explosions, identical distances apart in both air and
I don't think the
water.
video is showing it.
There isn't much effect on
Yeah,
land because air is compressible,
showing
which will
both
dissipate
video
energy.
and audio.
Okay, is the video playing?
Yes,
And do you have the audio?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so does the platform
Some
do
other people
properly?
can see the video. I
What's
can't see
around
it.
objects. But in
But
water,
if you're going to use this, you have to tell everybody to mute themselves
Which means
or
not only-
the sound gets chopped up.
Okay,
is the blast wave not dissipated, but it passes right through your mostly water body. So the air in these balloons represents the air in your body, like your lungs and your sinuses. So basically what's happening is the blast wave is pushing in on you, but the air cavities can't push back with the same force since they're filled with compressible air. That means they move a lot really quickly, which causes permanent damage. As a control, you could see this balloon that is filled with just water. It is perfectly fine. That would be like your arms and legs, which have no air in them, and they are basically incompressible like water and would be fine. An explosion under.
hang on. So I wanted to show that because it helps to evidence exactly what you're describing.
Yeah,
But
very good
I also
illustration.
Yeah, I also want to do this one as well. So this is a guy who has a channel called Kentucky Ballistics, and what he's doing is firing different calibers of water, different calibers of bullets into what's effectively a swimming pool to demonstrate how the friction slows them down, but how caliber makes a difference. But again, this is YouTube short as opposed to a full video, so I'm testing out the platform again.
He doesn't look like much happened to him. If it did hit him, I mean, it definitely didn't stick in him because it was just laying on the ground. Looking at the zombie, it doesn't look like, but.
And just so everybody knows, when we compare ballistics evidence for criminal cases, for court cases, this is what we do with recovered firearms. We fire them into a water tank, which preserves the impact of the lands and grooves on the projectile that we then compare to the recovered projectile from a body. So firing into water is very common for this.
These slugs, got it?
Let me jump forward a little bit.
Again, these rounds are next. We're going to see what would happen if you were underwater and you got shot at with a 50 BMG. This is my Serbu BFG 50A, and I'm going to be loaded up with one round. This is a 50 BMG, 650 grain full metal jacket. Oh dear.
So when dealing with a large enough caliber, we could actually say that the cavitation is similar, even though it would be non-lethal. But people think that bullets travel like ice picks. They're actually tiny drill bits. So the amount of friction from the water is what slows it down to a completely non-lethal speed. But anyway, I just wanted to show that as how we could use the platform to allow jurors with a little more technical background to present evidence on behalf of their verdict, if you will. But again, obviously, I'm 100% on board with you, Bob. This is a fantastic trial. I'm right there with you. Thank you for giving me a minute to show that. Bob, you're still on mute. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, juror 7.
That would be me, Bob. I have to say that I can relate with you on this one because, and to piggyback off what Brian just said, I'm familiar with how they have to use the different techniques in criminal trials and stuff like that. But I have a question, and I don't know if you mentioned this or not. What about fire? Because they always say fire, jump in water. What if it's like a explosion off of like the grenade or whatever? Isn't water supposed to stop the fire? So
that doesn't make sense. So it will cool the fire and stop.
okay.
What do you? I don't understand. I don't actually understand what you mean.
Because
So
what I'm saying is,
so
what I'm saying is,
fire is plasma. The atoms or molecules are ionized. Okay.
yeah,
In other words, they lose their electrons, and the electrons are flowing free around, and the rest of the atoms are flowing free around, but they're all charged, positive and negative charges, and it's hot enough that these things just stay apart, and that's what is fire. Okay.
oh, okay.
But the ions will also oxidize. In other words, oxygen ions and I don't know whatever's carbon ions will come together and form carbon dioxide very readily. It's just things will oxidize, which is the reason they say fire oxidizes things. It does. But if the fire happens quickly enough, it's an explosion.
Okay.
And it's because these events happen very quickly if they're allowed to happen quickly and the space is compact, it's held. So you can create an explosion. So one of the things that, I don't know if y'all grew up this way, but I grew up on a lake where my neighbors would always throw cherry bombs into the water.
Yeah.
And of course, this cherry bomb sinks, but even though it sinks a couple of feet down in the water, it still explodes. And it generates like depth charges. It is fire technically, but what's happening is that you're getting an ionization process. And that's what you see when you have a fire in the fireplace. You're seeing a plasma. Also, when the sun ejects mass, it's ejecting a plasma. And that's the reason that the ejections from the sun look like fire.
Oh, okay.
They are essentially burning material.
Overall, though, I agreed with you and stuff because it does make sense, all of it. So, and it's another great job.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, juror 8.
I didn't see a juror 8 in the chat, but well, there may be one. I don't know if they were finalized or not yet.
This looks good, and I was going to try to give you all a good Thanksgiving, so I was going to try to keep the case short, which I did. And for the one after Christmas, I'm going to try to make that short too, and the one after the 1st of January, I'll try to make that one short too. So this is going to be my gift to y'all. We're not making the gazillion dollars a day that I hoped we'd be making yet, but we will. We'll see y'all next week.
All right, bye, Bob.
Bye,
Bye.
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 Bye.